Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of Series 5 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from the virtual WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in virtual Monterey, California. James Pike here, once again, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Taylor Burris and our producer Ryan Bauer, as we get set to bring you the PCA Sport Class, the second race of the evening, which is brought to us this evening by our friends at Leland West. Leland West was started by PCA member Holly Bromberg after he recognized the need for more affordable Porsche insurance. He quickly found that over 11,000 other PCA members also shared his need, and since 1981, Leland West has offered its select automobile insurance program to PCA members across the United States. Working with collectible automobiles on a daily basis makes working at Leland West as fun as insurance can be. And following in Holly's footsteps, they know their enthusiasm and expertise helps make them the best choice for collectors and enthusiasts alike. And for more information on them, you can visit them at www.lelandwest.com. And a very at-home partner, I think, for this class in particular, when you consider that it was a PCA member that started that group and they sort of come back home to roost. It feels a little bit like Ally coming back to Hendrick Motorsports, because once upon a time, Ally was GMAC, who we know was a proud partner of Hendrick Motorsports in NASCAR for a long, long while. It's got that sort of vibe to it, Taylor, and I like it a lot.
It did. It's kind of like that prodigal son returns back to the PCA once again. And what a place to do it at here with the PCA Sim Racing Series here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for the sportsman class. So it's going to be a great honor to have them on board partnering with the sportsman class. So a great honor for Leland West to be joining us as a primary sponsor for this series and this class, as we are still underway with qualifying, actually about to come to a close. And Jensen Bennett is going to be our pole sitter by the looks of things.
I believe you are right about that, as we will go ahead and bring you the starting grid for tonight's sport class race, brought to you again by our friends at Leland West. Jensen Bennett, fast time with a 129.876 to take pole over Michael Masters. Theodosis Neokli will roll off from the third spot. Chris Duffy will begin from fourth. Earl Arch Jr. rolls off on the fifth spot. Sixth will be Brian Granger. Bob Moore begins from seventh. Julian Velez starts from eighth. Ninth will be Gregory Sampson. And George Markadakis will start from 10th.
Oregon Gerlap will be starting in the 11th position, followed by Will Kelly in 12th position, with Arne Clayson in 13th. Paul Solk will be coming home, starting in the 14th position, with Gary Rice in 15th. Donald Binkley, a returning PCA driver, will be starting in 16th, with Sebastiano Ballesteros in 17th. Ronald Cahill will be starting in the 18th position, with David Centel in 19th. Rounding out your top 20, Randall Ayers.
21st will be Owen Pruden. Jeff Williams begins from 22nd. Al Sadouk rolls from the 23rd spot. 24th is where you'll find David Palmer. John D'Angelo begins from 25th this evening. 26th to Stuart Nelson. Chip Witt starts from 27th and 28th. Lanre Sarumi. Dwayne Cronin begins from 29th this evening. 30th will be the 112 of Edward Cullen.
Stephen Vassini will be starting in the 31st position, with Carlo Borcheri in 32nd. Robert Walton will be starting in 33rd, with Gilmari Mungiari in 34th. Stephen Bukowski will be starting in 35th, with Ryan McGee in 36th. Nicholas Collini will be starting in the 37th position, with Chris Craig in 38th. Tyler Edwards in 39th, while Ken Estrick in 40th, Antonio De Silva 41st, and Peter Yerkes in 42nd.
A 42-car grid for PCA Sport Class Racing at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We'll take a look at the track facts once again before we go green flag racing. This is WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterey, California. We run the full course this evening, a 4.048 mile, 6.515 kilometer circuit with 11 turns. We race during sunrise. The default day for iRacing, May 15, 2020. Around 7:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time in Sim locally. Temps are the same as they were for that first race. 64 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 65 degrees Fahrenheit track temp. Winds are a little bit quieter, heading to the west at 8 miles an hour. Humidity is palpable. 100% humidity, in fact. So that probably will change as the sun rises, but you can almost see the humidity in the air on your screens, how heavy that thick morning air is as it rolls near the California coastline.
Got that fog rolling in as we see it coming in from the bay as we get ready to go green flag racing here for these drivers. Going to provide a little bit of interesting situations for these drivers as well, with the clarity and the visibility out on the race circuit, especially when they're coming towards the back half as they make the climb up the Rahal Straight with that sun in the driver's eyes. Going to be a little interesting and can be difficult when trying to find the correct braking point and apex in the corners.
Can be tricky indeed, as we also send a big thank you to our friends at Leland West for their affordable insurance of Porsches and their support of the sport class of PCA Sim Racing in Series 5, and also to our friends at the Virtual Racing School. This is an open setup series in Series 5. For those who don't understand what open is or haven't heard that term, that means that drivers have the ability to put any setup they want on these cars so long as they fit within iRacing's inspection standards, which they do have set ballparks, so you can't just throw anything on these cars. But for drivers who don't have the time or the opportunity to put together setups, the Virtual Racing School will come in and provide setups for you and drivers. We'll be running that VRS setup in tandem with some of the other setups that you see tonight. So thanks to our friends at virtualracingschool.com for their support of PCA Sim Racing as we get set for race number 2 of the evening. It will be all about Jensen Benet and company, who will lead us to green in the sport class, presented by Leland West. Series 5 of PCA Sim Racing gets their season underway, and it was a good start from Chris Duffy in the 924, who's going to try and jump around, and looks like he's going to make contact with Jensen Benet, and he will come down and make contact over in the Andretti hairpin, but Benet will hang on to the race lead as Earl Arts Jr. is going to jump up into P2 after all that, and Brian Granger will take over third.
A great hectic start going into turn 1 in the Andretti hairpin for sure here for the PCA Sportsman class, but everyone has now tried to get themselves gathered back up, and other than for Jensen, everybody else has pretty much moved around inside the top 5 for sure, as we see Christopher Duffy dropping all the way back to 5th position, and then the one driver who had the major incident, Theodius Nicoli, dropping all the way to 6th as he was trying to get into 2nd place coming out of turn 1.
Duffy was trying to clear himself off the nose, or actually, take it back. That was Neokli. You're right. He was trying to clear himself in front of Jensen Benet, and almost was clear. He got such a great start off the line, was just blitzing it, and just couldn't quite get in front of Benet enough, and ends up bouncing off the side of Benet, and gets an orange zone violation as a result. Made contact a little bit further back in the field. So Neokli, who almost had the race lead going into 1, is instead going to have to serve a pass-through penalty for his infraction of the orange zone violation. That a penalty and a drive-through that goes to any driver who causes an incident on the first lap. It emphasizes drivers taking care of not only their cars, but the cars of the other competitors on track within that opening lap when things can be so chaotic, Taylor.
Yes, indeed. I tell you what, a driver who lost a ton of positions and time is the driver who started in 2nd place, Michael Masters. He's dropped all the way back to 7th position, so he's got a lot of work to do tonight, as he is now about 1 second back from 6th place driver Will Kelly.
Also of note, Earl Arts Jr. looped it in the Andretti hairpin. He's back to 5th. It's Brian Granger who's now up to 2nd, and Chris Duffy, who I almost said got in trouble, but Duffy now up into the 3rd position as he carries on in the 924 machine. Duffy doing a nice job slipping and sliding around this very humid Laguna Seca, at least at this time in sim, but he's also beginning to climb up towards Brian Granger, and he's shedding some fast laps too. Granger's gap to the 924 is dropping significantly.
He is indeed, but I'm telling you what, I'm looking up towards the front of the field inside the top 5, and Bob Moore and Earl Arts Jr. are going at it. And then when you throw in Will Kelly in that mix as well, you have a 3-car battle for 4th place as they come out of the rainy curve, heading up to turn 10 and hitting the braking zone. They have to be careful as they go single file through the top, those corner right there, making the run up to turn 11. But on the back of the Rahal Straight, We saw Bob Moore throw a little bit of a block on Earl Arts Jr., so I'm sure Earl is trying to get around him as quickly as possible. He gets a little nudge, then goes to the inside. Bob tries into the contact, more contact as the mirror goes one of the mirrors off that portion of 914. As they now dive it into the Andretti hairpin side by side to see if there's a crossover move. Yes, there will be, and there goes Bob Moore around Earl Arts Jr. goes around Bob Moore and gets into the top 4.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily expect some Porsche drivers racing like it's a short track on a Saturday night to be knocked off my bingo card here on the 3rd lap, Taylor, but that's exactly
now you have.
I was about to say that's exactly what happened between Earl Arts and Bob Moore. Moore just about tried to put him into that pit wall on the front straightaway right as they came under the bridge past the start-finish line, but Arts was already there just enough, and then Moore tried to send it off to the inside and get that deep drive into one, but he overshot the corner, and Earl Arts, I think, was anticipating that. He just drove to the inside and cleared Bob Moore, so Arts back up into P4. More importantly, though, Chris Duffy has gotten around Brian Granger for the 2nd spot, so now it's all about whether or not he can run down Jenson Benet. As you take a look at Duffy's machine right on board with that 924. But we'll watch lap times over the course of the next lap or two, especially as they come across the start-finish line here. So lap traffic there in front of Jenson Benet is going to slow him down and cost him even more time. That, incidentally, is Theodosis Neokli, who was involved in that incident in turn 1.
Yes, indeed. So that's going to provide a little bit of a challenge for Jenson Benet now as they make the run down to the front straightaway into the Andretti hairpin. Here comes Chris Duffy with a head of steam. He looks to the inside, couldn't quite get his nose to the inside of Jenson. Now as they come out of the Andretti hairpin, make the run up to turn 3. And still right there on his bumper now as they come out of there heading underneath the Firestone Bridge.
Makes you wonder there. Maybe not necessarily that it was or wasn't intentional, but remember that Neokli and Benet got into each other on that opening lap in turn 1. I wonder if Neokli's memory isn't maybe a little bit longer than we initially thought.
He's throwing some interesting blocks and placing his car in difficult situations for Benet to get around him now as they come up the Rahal Straight. So we'll have to see how difficult and how big his mirrors will be for this driver. But we'll have to keep an eye on that as Chris Duffy now is under fire from Brian Granger and Earl Arts Jr. as they head down into the corkscrew.
And a big move there on Neokli, tried to cross contact there as Benet moves Neokli out of the way. And I have a feeling that would be, whether or not it was intentional, I don't know. But I don't think Benet's going to mind that, because I have a hunch just off the way that last lap panned out that Benet felt like he was being held up and eventually took matters into his own hands.
We'll have to keep an eye and see what the race officials will do right now, as it looks like Theodosis Nicoli will be black flagged for excessive blocking since he is a lap down car. So no penalty for Jenson Benet at all. He's just trying to avoid an incident, and Theodosis just decided to make it difficult.
So race control sees it the same way that Benet did, in which Neokli was trying to block Benet for his incident on that first corner over there on the first lap where they came together. Although, from what I saw just on my screen, I saw Neokli try and come down across the line of Benet into that first corner, and it just wasn't quite clear from what I saw. Might have
I think he overshot the corner.
Maybe overshot it a little bit as well. Yeah, so a tight racing incident there for sure, but certainly not the way that Neokli saw it. I think the blocking that we saw when they came back together a few laps ago showed that, and then Benet obviously took exception to that, and with that deft little hip check out of the corkscrew, off he goes, and Chris Duffy now there by a few car lengths, but it's clean racetrack in front of Benet and Duffy, at least for a little bit, up to Robert Walton, who is the next car in line in the 10 machine, but Walton is a little bit further back and currently running 37th at this time.
Drama here early on for the PCA Sportsman class here as they're coming into turn 11. The top 5 separated by about 4 seconds from Jenson Benet to Will Kelly in that number 3. Those him and Earl Arts Jr. And then throw in also Brian Granger as well. They're in a heated battle for that final step of the podium as they come across the start-finish line here as we are closing in on the 30 minutes marks left to go here in the race as we see Jenson now working through lap traffic once again.
Jensen working through the lap traffic. You see that great shot of the Andretti hairpin and then working their way back towards the lagoon itself. But good work between these drivers in the top 5. Everybody in that top 5 within about 4 seconds of one another. And then you stretch it back about maybe 13, 14 seconds back to Michael Masters and David Shedchell. That's your next good battle of racing, and then some good stuff all over the place. You've got a myriad of cars just a little bit further back. How about this battle for 9th? Bob Moore, Al Saduq, Sebastiano Balastrieri, all within a second of one another. You've got Gary Rice in there. Owen Pruden also trying to make his way up, but just some really, really good stuff at the back end of the top 10.
Yeah, really great battles indeed. Let's keep an eye on that battle between Bob Moore and also Al Saduq as they're now coming up towards the Rahal Straight. You see Sebastiano look to the inside as they come up through there, but he can't quite make it work. He gets a great run as they go up the Rahal Straight towards the corkscrew. Will Saduq be able to hold off Sebastiano as they head into the corkscrew? The answer will be yes. This time around, he will be able to, still keeping pace with the 772 of Bob Moore. But here comes Sebastiano with a great run as they go into the rainy curve. Side by side they'll go. Saduq will give way as you see Sebastiano go way wide, lose control of his Porsche, and there goes Saduq once again continuing on.
I almost feel like, and I'm not necessarily certain if this is or isn't true, but I almost feel like that with the way these cars drive, you've got more security in the way they handle. They definitely feel more planted underneath you when you race them, and I wonder if that emboldens drivers to make big time moves like what we just saw from Balastrieri in the rainy curve. Didn't quite have the brakes down as much as he needed to actually make the corner, so he loses a few spots in hand. But it's still, I think, entertaining to see drivers at least go for it. But I think there's something to be said about the setup of these cars that the drivers feel like they have the ability to go for it. Even though they might not necessarily be successful, I think that's hugely indicative of how racy these Caymans can be.
Need to actually make a change on who that was who went off. That was actually not Sebastiano. That was actually the 221 of Theodius Nicolia. So he's once again struggling out there on the track here tonight.
Sonny Oakley having a night that's gone from good to bad to worse, and it's just been a struggle for the driver of the 221 machine, an opening night to forget for Oakley. And I figure at this point it's about just sort of riding around, collecting points and regrouping for Canadian Tire Motorsport Park next Friday night. Benet out in front of Granger by 0.3 of a second, but a good trio now, good quartet, and really good stuff between Duffy and Earl Arts Jr. in the mix too with Granger. Granger is another one of those drivers who fed us a little bit more information. He hails from Long Beach proper, home of the Long Beach Grand Prix that is going to make its arrival on iRacing sometime in the near future. Already announced that iRacing and taking some time to go back to the Long Beach scan that they had built a long time ago and put that to life. I don't think people realize that putting together some of the artwork for these tracks can be very intensive, especially when you have a city track like Long Beach, where building all those buildings and having the PC draw all those buildings in addition to handling all of the racing on track is very
strenuous.
Intense. Yeah, it's intensive on the processor, and in order to get city tracks like that right, it takes some time to build them out. So when you don't really have any new data to work with, Taylor, it makes it very easy to jump in and go figure out how to make those buildings work a little bit better and optimize them. And that's been one of the big projects up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts at iRacing World Headquarters. They've taken a lot of time to start working on Long Beach, and I would hope that in the near future we will see Long Beach, and I think potentially on a future PCA schedule. It's one of the great street circuits of the world, and I think would be a circuit that would be right at home on a PCA calendar.
Of course. I mean, it is home to where we see some multiple GT4 races held on that circuit, especially for the SRO series that came and ran at Long Beach multiple years. So it would definitely be a place right at home for the PCA Sim Racing Series to take any of the Porsches out there. So it's going to be phenomenal once we get Long Beach on the circuit or on the service here. As we once again watch towards the top 3 right now, Earl Arts Jr. is to the inside of Chris Duffy as they go almost side by side. He'll almost make contact as we see Duffy shut the door on Earl Arts Jr. coming out of the Andretti hairpin and continue on up to turn 3. But a great battle amongst the top 3.
Really good stuff there. Granger, Duffy, Earl Arch. A few more fun facts about Brian Granger. He's part of the California Central Coast region of the PCA and has been sim racing since pole position. The godfather of all sim racing programs. Back in 1979, it first arrived in arcades and started last season in Series 4. And a big fan of the 550 Spider. Lightweight equals fun is what he told us. So, or actually, take that back. No, that would be the 919. So I'm really good at reading. Not really good at reading, but the 919 Porsche. We want to talk about fast machines. 919, I think, certainly counts. Yeah, little bit. You know?
It would be an understatement if you did not say the 919 is not a fast machine. I mean, one of the most beautiful racing Porsches out there. I mean, 919, phenomenal machinery.
It also only, set the record at the Nürburgring.
The Nürburgring.
By the way, yeah.
Which was originally held by a Porsche.
Right. But still, a 5:19:55 at a track where most production cars and sports cars, if you see them get in the 7-minute ballpark, that's usually pretty good. But that's... You want to talk about impressive and moving, especially on a track as bumpy as that, which incidentally is also available in sim. Whew.
Especially, it's phenomenal, especially when you're trying to drive that track at night, how difficult the Nürburgring Nordschleife is. I mean, where it's completely pitch black except for the headlights in front of you to where you can see. It's phenomenal, and it's a talent to drive that track, especially for 24 hours. But for these drivers, thankfully, they only have about 25 minutes to complete their race here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Earl Arts Jr. had quite a big save a few moments ago as he was struggling to get out of turn number 3, but was able to recover nicely, but lost a little ground to Chris Duffy and Brian Granger as they come out of the corkscrew and continue on their way through the rainy curve.
And as we carry on with tonight's broadcast, we remind you that PCA Sim Racing broadcasts on Podium Esports are brought to you by the Z1 Dashboard. The Z1 Dashboard is the application for helping you become ready during your races. The Z1 Dashboard includes over 170 different car-specific dashboards with 12 track maps. That'll show you everything you need to know about your position on track, your competitors' positions, and where you'll be after pit stops. The Z1 Dashboard can also take care of all the engineering and strategy for your races. But they're not. It's figuring out where your competition is on track, when you need to pit, how much fuel you need to take, which drivers are in front of and behind you, what the weather's like, and whether or not you're gaining or losing time to the drivers around you. You'll have all the information you need at the click of a button. And to find out more about the Z1 Dashboard, you can visit z1dashboard.com. Of course, Z1 Dashboard offering a free sim racing software package to any one of the members of PCA Sim Racing's EDE program. Every Friday night, we're going to have one giveaway, and tonight's winner of that software package is Christoph Schitko for the Magic region in the PCA Challenge class. So congratulations to Christoph, first winner of the Z1 Dashboard software package. And if you want to potentially be part of that program, you can head to PCASimRacing.com/EDE, and you too might be a winner of a Z1 Dashboard software package. But next to your leader, Granger, Duffy, Arts, Kelly, still in that quartet. A little bit further back, though. Good step between Gary Rice and Michael Masters. Those two have kept a pretty tight ship. Same for George Markadakis, Al Sadouk, Peter Yorkshaw, and then Stephen Vecina. And then how about Jeff Williams and Lanre Sarumi? Those two just about nose to tail coming up the hill towards the corkscrew as well.
Let's look in actually at Peter Xerxes. He started, if I remember correctly, when we were going through the starting lineup, dead last, 42nd out of the field, and he is inside the top 15 on lap 12, or with 22 minutes left to go on the clock. So he is putting on a stellar performance here tonight. He has had a little bit of help from drivers making mistakes, but he has set his sights on the 006 of Al Sadouk right now, who's just about a second up the road for him as he's coming into turn 11 and putting on some very impressive lap times. Ran a 1:32.2 this time around. Let's see what he runs when he gets to the start finish line right now as he's closing into the back bumper of Al Sadouk for the 12th position. He comes across the line with a 1:32.6 last time by, so a definite stellar performance for the 54 car.
The 54 out of Scarborough, Maine, part of the Down East region of the PCA, and A very, very quick driver at that. Really, really good stuff for Peter Yerkes. No one has gained more position in this challenge, or rather, sport class race tonight. Here, the season opener for Series 5 of PCA Sim Racing. But a very impressive drive for Peter Yerkes. No doubt we'll keep our eyes peeled as he continues to climb up the totem pole, up the leaderboard. Didn't even get the chance to set a qualifying time, and yet he's already almost in the top 10. So watch out for Yerkes. If he can throw down a qualifying time at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Taylor, I think we're going to have to keep our eyes on him as a potential threat to win the race up in Ontario next week.
Indeed, and speaking of that track, that's going to be even more of an interesting track for these drivers to master. It may look simple in layout, but it's kind of similar in a sense to a degree, like WeatherTech, with all the different elevation changes that the drivers will have to negotiate. I mean, you have the downhills, uphills, negotiating the tight corner, especially such as Moss. I mean, that track is going to prove a challenge for some of these drivers.
Could be very, very intriguing to see how that pans out. But we'll keep our eyes peeled on Laguna Seca here. A little bit further back, a few more battles to talk about. Guillermo Munguia and Ryan McGee also having some fun over in 20th and 21st. Good stuff between Ken Eskridge and Paul Sulk as well. As I think Stuart Nelson just managed to slide off track a little bit there, but Munguia and Reggie within a second of one another, racing for 20th and 21st.
Yeah, a great job for Ryan McGee right now, who's trying to keep pace with Guillermo Munguia right now as he is trying to do it as they go down the front straightaway into the Andretti hairpin. You see Ryan McGee just trying to track in towards the apex and then track out just a little bit before hitting the second apex of the Andretti hairpin. Very interesting corner at the Andretti hairpin is it's a double apex in a sense. You want to try to track the car out just a little bit when you get ready for the second apex. You don't want to just run the inside lane because that just slows your car down, especially on your corner exit. You want to run it into the first apex, track it out, and then diamond it in for the next apex. So it's very critical to try to track your car on this circuit, especially when a critical corner such as the Andretti hairpin is key for anything you want to do here on this circuit.
Very key indeed as they continue to work their way around Laguna Seca. We'll float around to some of the other good battles on the track. Good stuff here between, we'll start, let's go to
14th. I mean, there's a good battle. Steven Bassini, Williams, and Sarumi, and Bob Moore. That's a good battle right there.
Really good stuff. And Dwayne Cronin, too, I think. Well, actually, no, there's a lap car in there.
Yeah, Cronin's about 5 seconds back. So
Gregory Sampson is the one that we're looking at in the mix there. But, yeah, all really, really good stuff. When you look at Vecina and slide all the way back, he's got blue car on your screen. Some drivers might see him in the Flying Lizard colors back in the 2000s as well. One of those unheralded GTTs who had a lot of success back in the day. But very cool to see nonetheless as everybody carries on in the corner here. And Ronley Sarumi will clear the lap traffic of Stephen Bukowski. Looks like Bob Moore will get to the inside and cut down and cut through the lagoon and jump in and just about got into Bukowski, but we'll clear him. So all 5 of those cars still together, but maybe not quite as tied together as they were. And Vecina and Williams may have a good battle going to the corkscrew.
As we watch that battle going on, it's going to be a tight one indeed as they're coming through the corkscrew right now. Trying to find it right here. Seem to have lost it for a second.
As they carry on through the corkscrew, Vecina is still the leader of this train. A little bit of lap traffic in front of him. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. How about not lap traffic? He's managed to run down Owen Pruden. So all of a sudden, you've got, 5 or 6 cars in the mix here?
Yeah, a lot of good cars in the mix here for this battle, and it's all starting with that 96 of Owen Pruden, who's starting this train as they're coming down the front straightaway. He is in the 13th position, and here comes everybody else right in tow. Steven Bassini, Jeff Williams, Lonray Sarumi, Bob Moore, all right there. Any one of those makes a mistake, they can capitalize. And speaking of that, here goes Peter Yerkes around Owen Pruden. And Bassini tried to make the move, but couldn't make it work for him as they come up to turn 3.
working their way through this group. And I think it gives us a good opportunity to talk about just how tricky it can be as Vecina goes off over in turn 3. That will allow Williams to get underneath them. Looks like Lanre Sarumi is right there in the mix as well. And here comes Bob Moore at the back of this. Now gaining on Sarumi, he'll have the opportunity to get to the inside of Sarumi as they begin their climb up the hill. So Sarumi will drop back to 16th, forward to 15th. Vecina back to 14th, and Jeff Williams is now the head of this train with the lap car of Gregory Simpson in the middle of that sandwich as they work up the hill towards the corkscrew once again.
Here we go. Let's see what they can accomplish. Steven Vecini trying to get a little bit of a slipstream as they head up the Rahal Straight, but has to then back it off into the braking zone to set up for the corkscrew. He has a little bit of lap traffic still with that 91 car right in front of him as they're trying to negotiate through the lap traffic. And he is going to lose a little bit of time. Here comes Bob Moore to the back bumper of Steven Vecini as they come out of Rainy Curve into turn 10 once again. Still putting the pressure on him as they come up to turn 11. Will Bob Moore go to the outside? No, he'll go to the inside. Dive it in there, but can't quite make it where it has to come to almost a complete stop to make the corner.
He tried. He certainly tried. He just ended up losing time to Vecina. As we'll take a moment to bring you your midway race break, which is brought to you by our friends at Leland West. Leland West was started by PCA member Holly Bromberg after he recognized the need for more affordable Porsche insurance. And he quickly found that over 11,000 PCA members shared this need. Since 1981, Leland West has offered its select automobile insurance program to PCA members across the United States. Working with collectible automobiles on a daily basis makes working at Leland West as fun as insurance can be. Following in Holly's footsteps, they know their enthusiasm and expertise will make them the best choice for collectors and enthusiasts alike. Jensen Benet, your leader, as they work through lap 17 on the board at Laguna Seca. Chris Duffy runs in second. Third belongs to Earl Arch Jr. Brian Granger runs in fourth. Fifth to the 3 of Will Kelly. Sebastiano Balestrieri runs in the 6th spot. 7th to Michael Masters, Gary Rice, Al Sadouk, and George Markadakis. Top 10 right now.
Peter Xerxes is in the 11th position with Owen Pruden in 12th. Jeff Williams is in 13th with Steven Vecini in 14th. Bob Moore is sitting in 15th with Lanre Sarumi in 16th. Dwayne Cronin in 17th with Ronald Cahill in 18th. Ryan McGee in 19th, and Ken Eskrig is in the top 20.
And 21st is where Ken Eskrig sits. 22nd is Paul Sulk. Julian Velez runs in 23rd, last car in the lead lap. Chip Witt is 24th. 25th belongs to Orgun Garalp. Chris Craik is 26th at this time. 27th belongs to David Palmer. 28th to Arnie Klassen. Robert Walton runs in 29th. And 30th belongs to Antonio da Silva.
32nd goes to David Sentel, followed by Stephen Bukowski in 33rd. Carl Borcheri in 34th with the 40 car of Nicholas Collini in 35th. Gregory Sampson in 36th with Stuart Nelson 37th. Donald Binkley in 38th. John D'Angelo is in the 39th position with Tyler Edwards 40th. Theodius Nicoli in 41st. And Edward Cullen rounds out your 42 car field.
And that is tonight's midway race break, brought to you by our friends at Leland West. For more information, you can visit them at www.lelandwest.com. Jensen Benet is still your race leader. He's got it up to almost 6 seconds over Chris Duffy, and they have spread themselves out amongst that front group now. It's Brian Granger and Will Kelly making a strong run. And Kelly, we've not had the chance to talk about all that much in this race up to this point, but all of a sudden, he's made the charge from 12th on the grid to 5th and is hounding Brian Granger for 4th. Kelly, a driver out of the Maverick region of the PCA. And for those who don't know about the Maverick region, that's the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex show. Texan-sized power coming to the inside here, and Will Kelly is going to make the move on Brian Granger to take over that 4th position.
Textbook pass right there before they get onto the Rahal Straight. Will Brian be able to respond when they get up to the corkscrew? He's not close enough to make anything work for him right now, but Will Kelly definitely showing the way here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as they come up to Rainy Curve and doing a phenomenal performance. If you go a little further back, Michael Masters as well has moved himself back into the top 6 with his battle with Sebastiano Ballestar.
Sebastiano Balistrieri, yeah, definitely moving around and going crazy here. We've got some good work coming on and some good drivers making it happen here at the end of the day. Really, really good stuff from Will Kelly there to jump up towards the front. Really good stuff from Brian Kelly, or Will Kelly, to charge the way he has. He and Peter Yerkes are the two fastest drivers in terms of charging through the field. Yerkes is up into the top 10 after starting 42nd. So tip of the cap to both of those drivers. Really have made the most out of it tonight, Taylor.
They certainly have, by just raw speed and talent, as well as help from other drivers making mistakes on the circuit for them to gain the needed position and time on their competitors. So a great run for them indeed.
Good work there on all fronts. Granger hasn't let Kelly go, per se, but I don't necessarily know if he's got the speed, especially when you consider that Kelly was beating Granger by about a second a lap for about the last 4 or 5 leading up to that pass. Maybe Granger will kick up the afterburners now that he's finally behind Kelly. Is this contact there? One car, lap car in the way, and it was Chip Witt, who I think was trying to get out of the way and ended up getting into Granger to slow him down.
One rule that I have learned when it comes to sports car racing is if you're a lap down car and lead lap cars are trying to get around you, hold your position and line. They will find a way to get around you. You don't have to move per se, because if you move, those drivers who are on the lead lap have to make evasive maneuvers sometimes just to get around you. So the best play, and this is a form of any sports car racing, whether it be single class or multi-class, is just hold your line. They are faster. They will find a way around you. So very critical, and looks like a costly mistake could be for the 36 of Brian Granger with that damage he has.
Granger does have that damage on the front of the nose, and we'll see if that affects his car in the last few moments or so. We've got 10 minutes on the clock in the second race of 4 this evening, so not too much longer for these drivers to tackle, but still some good battles around the racetrack, and maybe surprise, surprise, or not surprisingly, that Messina Pruden Moore group is still right on top of each other. And then we've got a secondary battle between Jeff Williams and Lanre Sarumi for 14th and 15th. And George Markadakis has also entered the fray. So there's a 3-car group for 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Yeah, here comes Market Davis as they come out of turn 11. He's gained a lot of ground on the two competitors of Jeff Williams and Lanre Sarumi as they come across the line. Let's take a look at their times. And George Marcadeus ran the fastest lap out of those 3 drivers with a 1:33.01 compared to the other 2 who ran in the 3s and 2s as they enter in the Andretti hairpin. Big checkup for the 11 of Lanre Sarumi. He goes way wide. This could be the opportunity for Marcadeus to go to the inside as he has to do a evasive maneuvers as Sarumi made a big block as they entered turn 3.
He sent it way down to the inside. It wasn't going to give Markatakis any room whatsoever. Sarumi sends it wide out of the corner, and now here's the opportunity for Markatakis to make the run if he so chooses, but Markatakis didn't quite get the kind of run he needed to get around. So all of a sudden, they're nose to tail. This is 15th and 16th on the racetrack. Sarumi, a veteran of PCA Sim Racing, competed in Series 4, but Markatakis, I believe, one of the new ones from this series, and that should be a lot of fun to see what he can pull off. He, one of the many drivers from the metropolitan New York region, which covers New York City and Long Island. Lanre Sarumi from the Chicago region. So New York versus Chicago, racing for 14th and 15th.
I think that sounds like I've heard something like that before in other sporting events as well. But anyway, these two drivers are still doing battle as they come out of turn 10, heading up to turn 11. Here comes Markatakis to the inside. Will he throw it in there? The answer will be yes, but will he make it stick? Sarumi crosses over, and Markatakis will take the position away from Lanre Sarumi.
If my ears didn't deceive me, did I hear a 90s NBA reference in the whole New York versus Chicago thing there, Taylor? Is that where you were headed with that?
I think if people would know what's going on, I think they might get that reference.
I certainly did. I certainly did. So that pass was very sort of 1994-esque.
I would go 94. 94
because I think 94 was the year that the Knicks actually beat the Bulls. Of course, they were without Jordan. But New York wins over Chicago in that battle is the end of the point. And Markatakis now up into 14th over Sarumi. Although I think we can say pretty safely, just as an aside, 90s NBA uniforms. Yes, and
Yes.
all over again. Yes, just a yes. So we'll leave the 90s and come back into present day and keep our eyes peeled for some of the other good battles. A good one between Ken Eskridge and Dwayne Cronin, 22nd and 23rd. Two drivers that we also haven't had the chance to chat that much about, but there's a little bit of fun a little bit further back in this field. Cronin, part of the Ohio Valley region of the PCA, which admittedly has some of the weirdest geography of any PCA region because it does follow the Ohio River Valley. It covers parts of southeastern Indiana, northern Kentucky, southern Ohio, a little bit of West Virginia, that sort of stretch along the Ohio River. And that's the Ohio Valley region that we're talking about. Ken Eskridge, on the other hand, comes from the Heart of Dixie region of the PCA, which covers northern Alabama, Decatur, and Huntsville, Alabama, home to, really close there with the lap traffic just about down into Eskridge. But Eskridge, I'll give a little bit of love just because one of the best minor league baseball names of any team I've heard, the Rocket City Trash Pandas, play just outside of Huntsville. And yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I heard you with the laughter there.
I'm getting ready to say that is probably the best name I've ever heard for any baseball team name.
It's a good one, that's for sure. Although Alabama's got a good track record with minor league baseball names when you consider them and the Montgomery Biscuits, where the mascot is literally a biscuit with a piece of butter for a tongue. Apologies if we're making you hungry on the broadcast.
I'm getting ready to say.
I don't blame you, to be fair, because I do love me a good warm fluffy biscuit with some butter.
Well, James, bring me something from Biscuitville when you come back down to Florida. How about that?
I could do that. I could definitely make that happen. A little bit of ham biscuit in there too.
Of course.
So, biscuits aside, Ken Eskridge has passed Dwayne Cronin for 22nd. Probably about 3 minutes left in this race by my count. So not
5 minutes.
Under 5 minutes, as James Bidet had to come down for fuel, I believe. So
we have to go up, right? Sorry about this. Go up to P13. George Markadakis and Bob Moore going at it once again as Moore and Markadakis, as Moore is throwing some big blocks around Markadakis as they go down the front straightaway. But Markadakis was just trying to dive it in there in turn 11 and couldn't quite make it stick. But Moore is not showing any fear whatsoever here as they go into the Andretti hairpin. It's breaking up just a little bit, but that's a battle to be keeping an eye on.
That is a battle to be keeping our eyes on. Markadakis has climbed up more part of the Boston region, or rather the Northeast region, which covers the Boston area of the PCA. So now
another good, yeah, Boston versus New York.
Boston versus New York. I don't think we need to say much about that. So I guess the ultimate question is who ends up being the daddy at the end of this?
I was thinking more Big Papi, but we'll go with that as well.
Yeah, that too. So right now, the answer to that question is Bob Moore, as we litter these PCA broadcasts with references from great sports moments of the past. But Bob Moore out in front there, Markadakis. And I think the wild thing, if you saw it, that last lap on the front straightaway, Markadakis was swerving so much to the left and the right that he almost suspension rolled himself into the wall on the front straightaway trying to get around Bob Moore, which I would say I haven't seen all that much, but I was at Langley Speedway last weekend for some real life racing, and I saw a truck suspension roll itself into a flip on the front straightaway. So stranger things have happened.
As we go a little bit further up the field, let's go up to P8. 3 cars under a blanket, pretty much. Gary Rice, Al Saduq, and Peter Xerxes as they come out of turn 3, heading underneath the Firestone Bridge. These 3 drivers have been nose to tail for multiple laps and doing a great job of keeping it clean, but yet providing great racing action. Gary Rice in that number 7 Porsche, holding off a hard charge from Al Saduq in the 006 as they come up towards the Ray Hall straight right now, getting ready to go underneath the VP Racing Field Bridge. And Saduq backs off just a little bit, which gives the opportunity for the 54 Peter Xerxes to get into the 9th place.
For those playing PCA region bingo at home, Rice is part of the Peach State region, Saduq part of the Eastern Buckeye region, and Yerxa part of the Down East region. We mentioned him earlier covering Maine as a Mainer, but if you're looking at the Peach State region, probably not a surprise that covers the greater Atlanta metro region. First reference of many we will have for the Peach State region of PCA. Of course, for those who have watched PCA sim racing broadcasts, you'll know that They had their own series before the national series came into play, as we see a big move from the inside there, and Saduk gets around Gary Rice, and so Saduk carrying the Eastern Buckeye region and the area around Youngstown, Ohio on his back. He takes off and takes over P8, and then you've got Yerxa back in there in Maine trying to make a move around Rice, but Big sends down into the corner, and Rice just about got it stopped in time.
Let's just say if it wasn't for the Peach State region, we would not have PCA Sim Racing. So just a big thank you for them for providing that to where we have the opportunity to bring you, the viewers and fans of all things Porsche, the PCA Sim Racing series here on the Podium Esports Network.
I think there's definitely some truth to that a lot of the success of PCA Sim Racing, I think, can be attributed to what the Peach State region was able to set up in their own individual region league before we had the National League. And there's plenty of Peach State representation, not only across all four classes, but also in the steering committee that helps run PCA Sim Racing. So you'll hear Peach State covered a lot.
We have a development. Jensen Benet is running in 4th position right now. Chris Duffy is now your race leader with less than a lap to go.
We were, as Bob Moore is going to get a black flag for his blocking move on George Markadakis just a little bit ago.
Ooh. So
interesting ruling from race control there, and a decisive one there in that battle. That means Moore is going to slide back, and Markadakis will take over 12.
So I'm trying to see what has happened to our former race leader of Jensen Benet and how he lost the lead. He had to come down pit road for some reason.
I believe fuel. He was running so hard, and it was a point that the race control officials made to some of these drivers that you could run out of fuel if you push it too hard. And I think that's exactly what Benet did. So splash of gas for Benet. He's got about 10 seconds to try and make up in about,
he's 3rd right now, and
maybe a lap or so, but it might not be enough because the clock will run out, and Chris Duffy will make sure that he comes across the line first, and he will take the victory in this sport class. Sponsored by Leland West, second winner of the night in PCA Sim Racing. Chris Duffy gets it done over Earl Arms Jr., and Jensen Benet will come home in P3, just ahead of Will Kelly, who had that magnificent run to jump up to 4th right at the end.
Probably, if this is what we intend to see in the sportsman class, this is going to be a great series for this class here indeed. I mean, a lot of drama, a lot of action here to cover. It's going to be an interesting season for these drivers here.
Plenty of racing. That was a lot of action packed into about a 40-minute period or so. And at the end of it all, it is Chris Duffy who just sort of hung around in the top 2, top 3, kept a clean race car for the most part. And when Benet came down pit road,
Duffy was there.
Yeah, took advantage of it at the end of the day. And so Chris Duffy, veteran of the Virtual California Festival of Speed, gets the job done tonight. And maybe not a surprise, I think, that we have a VCFOS driver. The first time that the Porsche Club of America competed with these Porsche Cayman GT4s in iRacing, come through and get the victory on night 1 of PCA Series 5, where we finally race the GT4s. So fitting, I think, in that sense. No, Taylor?
Very fitting indeed.
As Duffy and company will celebrate their victory, and we'll have the chance to chat with Duffy in just a little bit, but we'll take a look at your full field rundown, which sees Duffy get the job done over Earl Arts Jr., Jensen Benet, and Will Kelly. Brian Granger finished in the 5th spot. 6 went to Michael Masters. Al Saduk was 7. Gary Rice finished in the 8th spot. 9th went to Peter Yerxa, and Jeff Williams rounded out the top 10. Taylor?
Bob Moore will come home in the 11th position, with Steven Vicini in coming home in 12th. Lonray Sarumi will come home in the 13th position, with Owen Pruden in 14th. Ryan McGee will come home in the 15th position, with Sebastiano Ballesterieri in 16th. Ronald Cahill will come home in the 17th position, with George Marcadeas coming home in 18th, the last car on the lead lap. As they're coming around, 19th goes to, trying to see right here, Julian Velez will be coming home in the 18th position. 19th goes to Paul Sulk, and rounding out your top 20 actually is going to be George Marcadeas.
Ken Askridge finishes in 21st this evening, 22nd to Dwayne Cronin. Guillermo Munguia rides the 23rd spot, 24th is where you found Orgun Garaup. Chip Witt finished in 25th, 26th to Robert Walton. David Palmer was 27th and 28th, Arnie Klassen. Randall Ayers finished 29th and 30th, went to the 14 of Chris Craig.
David Centel will come home in 31st with Stephen Bukowski in 32nd. Gregory Sampson will come home in 33rd with Carl Barcheri in 34th. 35th goes to Nicholas Collini, followed by in 36 Antonio De Silva. 37th will go to Stuart Nelson with John D'Angelo in 38th. 39th goes to Donald Binkley with Tyler Edwards 40th. Theodius Nicoli will come home 41st, and Edward Cullen rounds out your 42-car field.
And that was your rundown for the PCA Sport Clash. This is brought to you by Leland West. Leland West was started by PCA member Holly Bromberg after he recognized the need for more affordable Porsche insurance. Quickly found that over 11,000 other PCA members shared his need, and since 1981, Leland West has offered its select automobile insurance program to PCA members across the United States. Working with collectible automobiles on a daily basis makes working at Leland West as fun as insurance can be. And following in Holly's footsteps, we know our enthusiasm and expertise help make Leland West the best choice for collectors and enthusiasts alike. And for more information on them, you can visit www.lelandwest.com. That will cover the second race of the evening. 2 down, 2 to go, as the PCA Sport Class, sponsored by Leland West, will conclude their proceedings from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. So, remind you again, now will be the time to flip over to the next YouTube video. You head down to the bottom if you're on YouTube and click that blue PCA Sim Racing icon. It takes you back to the channel page. You'll want to head to the PCA Club video from Laguna Seca. That'll be up next as our third clash, presented by Michelin, will take to the track. We'll take a quick break to get ready as you watch more coverage of PCA Sim Racing Series 5 from WeatherTech Laguna Seca, presented by Podium Esports here on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel.